Enterprising Engines is the 23rd book of the Railway series, and was first published in 1968. It was written by the series creator Wilbert Awdry, and illustrated by Mr. and Mrs. Peter Edwards. Over 20 years later, 3 of its short stories were adapted into 2 short episodes of Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. How faithful were these adaptations? Let's see if we can spot the differences. The first story, Tenders for Henry, had its title changed to Tender Engines when adapted in 1992. The episode begins with Gordon being criticised by James and Duck for taking on a lot of coal and water.
"If I had 2 tenders," said Gordon, "I wouldn't need to stop so often and I wouldn't have to listen to silly little engines."
The big engine then notices an unnamed engine with 2 tenders, whereupon Diesel tells him that steam engines have been abolished everywhere besides the island of Sodor.
"Yes, Gordon, it is true." "What, sir? All my Doncaster brothers drawn the same time as me? All gone, except one."
This sequence does not happen in the original book. Instead, the story begins with the scene that takes place after this one, where the other engines tease Gordon for being unhappy. And then he goes to the station and speaks to the Fat Controller about what he has heard from Diesel.
"I'm not happy," complained Gordon. "I know," put in Duck brightly. "It's boiler ache." "It's not boiler ache," protested Gordon. "Of course it is," said Henry. "Your boiler must be full of sludge. Have a good washout. Then you'll feel a different engine."
To cheer Gordon up, the Fat Controller asks Gordon's brother, Flying Scotsman, to come and visit him. In the episode, the 2 tenders do belong to Flying Scotsman, but despite he and Gordon being very close in the book, Gordon doesn't even seem to recognise his brother in the episode. Apparently, this was intended to be a more faithful adaptation, but the television show didn't have a big enough budget to design the world-famous engine. Consequently, only his tenders get a cameo.
"You've changed a lot," smiled Flying Scotsman. "I had a rebuild at Crewe. They didn't do a proper Doncaster job, of course."
As Donald and Douglas did not get the choice of changing their paint colour from black to blue, they are still black in all episodes of the series, regardless whether they are adaptations of the original source. Henry is tricked into pulling 6 tenders full of boiler sludge. He is naturally very annoyed by this, and in the book's illustration, his face is actually red with rage.
"I never boast,
He puffed.
but I always work hard enough for 2. I deserve another tender for that."
The book's next story, Super Rescue, where Henry pulls and pushes 2 broken down diesels and their heavy trains, has never been adapted for television.
"For pity's sake, take this spam can away. It's failed." "Spam can?" fumed 199. "I'm stoic," snapped the signalman, "or I'll take my tin opener to you."
The episode Escape begins with a sequence between Douglas, Edward and Trevor.
"And you and he have a lot in common too." "Och, aye," quizzed Douglas. "And what'd that be?" "Scrap," said Edward.
Like with the beginning of Tender Engines, this scene was not in the original book. However, it is definitely not out of place, as it does add more backstory to the overall story. The book's story therefore starts after this scene, when Douglas takes a goods train to the other railway, where he meets Oliver, the Great Western engine, who is trying to make it to the island of Sodor before he is scrapped. In addition to Toad the brake van, Oliver has also brought his coach Isabel. The character has never appeared or been mentioned in the television series.
"There's a bell on her, you see. She's clever. When I pull, I can see ahead. When I push, I can't. So Isabel keeps a good lookout and rings her bell to talk to me."
Just as Douglas begins to help Oliver and his train out of the siding, a diesel calls out, like a watchdog, to alert the foreman. And after this, during the journey back home, Oliver tells Douglas about the time they hid from diesels on an abandoned branch line. Neither of these 2 moments happen in the episode.
"Seems in order," said the foreman grudgingly. "But it's queer." "Sure and it is," began the guard. "But I could tell you queerer."
The story ends with them finding an empty siding to hide Oliver in, and Douglas referring to him as an enterprising engine. The episode, however, combines Escape and the book's last story, Little Western, into one. Little Western begins with Flying Scotsman going home, the Fat Controller making a speech, and Donald and Douglas singing Will Ye No Come Back Again. Douglas then tells the other engines about rescuing Oliver, which Sir Topham Hatt overhears.
I'm feared, said Donald, some murdering diesel may creep in, and him there alone, lacking steam even to whistle for help.
He tells them that he has decided to keep 7101. 7101 was one of the 2 visiting diesels that broke down in Super Rescue, though he was at least friendly, unlike 199. 7101, who gained the nickname Bear, has never been seen or mentioned in the TV series, and after Enterprising engines was practically never seen or referred to in the Railway series. The Fat Controller tells Douglas that Toad wants to be his brake van, which the Scottish engine had almost asked Oliver about at the end of Escape.
About this Toad, he continued. Is he... Who'd you wished, said his driver.
It is not revealed why Douglas wanted Toad to be his so much, considering they never exchanged any dialogue together, but regardless of this, as Oliver did not have Isabel in Thomas and Friends, Toad still seems to be his brake van in all future appearances. At the end of the story, we are informed the Fat Controller gave Duck and Oliver 3 coaches: Alice, Mirabelle, and Dulcie. While Duck does have 3 coaches at the end of the episode, they are not named and in fact appear to be generic Red Express coaches.
Is it from scrap you're escaping? Yes. Then it's glad I'll be to help ye. But we maun work fast.
Will ye no come back again? Will ye no come back again? Better lose ye county. Will ye no come back again?
Please tell everyone, announced the Fat Controller, that whatever happens elsewhere, steam will still be at work here.